Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar, and I'm so excited to have NoiseAware with me today. It's December 2020, and we are so excited to be presenting our partnership with NoiseAware. We are the first property management software that is working with NoiseAware, and we're thrilled to do so. Hostfully, for those of you that don't know, Hostfully and NoiseAware have kind of both grown up at the same time. And so we've been in touch with the founders of NoiseAware since very early days. And it's really fun to see us being able to help so many people out there in this world with vacation rentals, whether it's managing their properties or making sure that they don't get their properties screwed up by mischievous guests. And so we're here to talk a little bit more about how NoiseAware and Hostfully can work together to help you property managers do your job more easily and get more revenue, and also get guests that are going to treat your places nicely. Let me get over to my slides here. Is this going to work? Here we go. All right. So my name is Margot Schmorak. I am the CEO and co-founder of Hostfully, and I am joined by Michael. Hi, Michael.
Hello. How are you?
Good. Michael Golden is the Director of Business Development at NoiseAware. We're just chatting. I'm based in California, and Michael, you're in Alabama. How's it going down there?
Winter came really quickly. It was like 28 last night. It's unseasonably cold here.
Oh, that is cold. I didn't know it got that cold down there. Yeah, we're sort of enjoying some sunny weather in here in California. Nice after the fires and craziness of 2020. But we are here to talk a little bit more about Hostfully and NoiseAware. And before we dive into this webinar, I wanted to just quickly remind our audience, in case you haven't learned a little bit about Hostfully already, we offer property management platform and digital guidebooks. We have a tip-to-tail property management platform that helps you take your listings and put them on all the different bookings platforms, including Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo, and more. We also offer an out-of-the-box direct booking website with a centralized calendar so that you can see all your reservations coming in, get them from guests who might have stayed with you before, and then also manage those from right from there in the property management platform. We help you automate your communications with automated emails and text messages so that you don't have to do all that stuff manually. And then we also are partnered with over 30 companies, including NoiseAware, that can offer you a tremendous amount of value if you're not using them already. Things like dynamic pricing, payment providers, and more. We also offer the industry's leading digital guidebook solution, where you can basically create a little mini website for your property that you send to your guests after they book with you. And think of it like a replacement to your house manual. And so what this does is it helps save you time answering those repetitive questions that you might get over and over from guests, and also can bring you more brand awareness and allow you to get more repeat bookings, potentially through your direct bookings website. The final thing that people love about our guidebooks platform is that it helps you make you more money. You can merchandise things like an early check-in or late checkout or mid-stay cleaning or any other services that you'd like to provide through our Hostfully marketplace. So if you want to learn more about guidebooks and our property management platform, please visit our website at hostfully.com. But without further ado, I want to talk more about NoiseAware. NoiseAware is such a cool idea, and it has so many awesome downstream impacts that I'm going to let you talk about, Michael. But making sure that you have the right guests in your properties is so important. And we think about it in terms of getting revenue and getting the right kind of bookings. And I love that NoiseAware thinks about it, which is like, once a guest is there, how do you manage them the best way? And so can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think there's, the platforms have made it a lot harder to do guest screening ahead of arrival. And so tools like NoiseAware are almost necessary in today's day and age to ensure that the guests are doing what the guests told you they were there to do. Have a good time, relax, enjoy a vacation, see some friends, family, but not there to disrupt the neighborhood, disturb the community, or worst case scenario, obviously have house parties. NoiseAware is founded as a result of a house party and a rental. It was two girls promising a quiet study weekend before finals in Dallas, and 15 noise violations, 2 cease and desists later. Turns out we call it mini Coachella. but the event started Friday night and apparently did not end until Sunday around checkout. So after that, I think you met David and Andrew and Christine on our Rent Responsibly Road show, where they rented a van and drove across the country and promoting the good word. But it certainly is becoming even more relevant in today's day and age, and we'll get into a little bit of that later. So just to cover, I guess, what we're going to discuss today, quick overview on what NoiseAware is, how we work. We recently did a white paper with Hostfully, so some of the key pieces of data that can be learned from that we'll touch on. We'll talk about how to prevent some parties. We'll also talk about some parties that we have stopped. That'll be the entertaining part of the presentation. And then, as Margaret said, it'll be the downstream effects. Basically, noise can affect many different functions of your business, and we'll talk about that.
Oops, sorry about that. Here we go.
So NoiseAware is a noise monitoring tool, which means we're essentially taking the noise temperature like a thermostat would and reporting that back to our dashboards. It is fully privacy safe. We were designed specifically for short-term rentals, and we're essentially taking a noise reading and getting that back to our servers every second. And we're not looking for singular loud noises like a slammed door or a horn honking or a dish dropping in the kitchen, but sustained noise that's going to be problematic to the neighbors or the community, and also leading indicator of damage for the property. And when that noise has exceeded a threshold that is customizable, then we're going to let the owner or the property manager know via text, push notification, or email. And that can then spur on reaching out to the guests, basically asking them to be aware of the quiet hours at the property. 80% of the time, a single text that just reminds the guests of quiet hours solves the problem. And so the system is pretty direct, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but highly effective in combating one of the industry's biggest nuisances. And in partnership with Hostfully, the API enables Night Agent, which is a team from NoiseAware to actually reach out to your guests after hours. Most of the noise events happen after hours, as you would imagine. That's when people are being disruptive to the community and the neighbors. So our team can reach out to your guests directly. And it's just, again, a simple soft touch point solves about 80% of the problems. And through our escalation, we're able to resolve 95% of the issues remotely. And only on that 5% of the time do we need to call you and let you know to make sure you're able to handle the situation. Most people aren't out to be bad, to break rules. Most people comply when you call them out. There are, of course, the worst case scenarios, and in those cases, we're letting you know before the neighbors know, before the cops know. And being proactive against these things is what the industry needs to keep from getting headlines in the news that we've all seen so many times.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the data historically that NoiseAware has, 1 in every 20 stays or 20 reservations is going to result in an event that's loud enough to disturb the neighbor or the community. And when you think about a single property, that's happening a couple times a year. When you're thinking about managing 20 properties or 100 properties, that's happening quite regularly, every weekend.
Are there certain properties that are more likely to have issues than others?
It's a good question. So our alerts are tied in based on the property type. So our thresholds adjust if you're a 5-bedroom single-family home or a 1-bedroom condo. We see a bigger correlation between location and markets than we do on unit type and size. 2 people can be just as loud and annoying as 10 people there for a Bible study. And both cases happen in rentals. And that's why noise is the problem. And it's less occupancy than it is noise. Often occupancy does tie in with higher noise levels, but it doesn't necessarily lead to mixed use of the property, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I just have a follow-up question about the night agent. I don't know the answer to this. So let's say someone sets off, triggers the kind of night agent engagement, right? So that they get a call or a text, and then does the night agent know that that was resolved? Like, do they continue to monitor that for a certain period of time? And how does that work? Can you explain more about that?
Yep. So as long as the noise is over the threshold, our night agents are going to be watching it, and as soon as it falls below, there's a few minutes gap that they're going to still keep their eye on it. And if it again rises above that threshold, that will continue the escalation process. But yes, we do watch it until resolution for sure. Cool.
And final question is, have you seen like changes that have happened in the market because of COVID? We've been through such a huge change this year, everyone, right? And it's affected everybody differently. We've seen some property managers have their business do better, and some have done a lot worse. And I imagine also on the noise monitoring side of things, maybe there are some trends that you've seen.
Yeah, it's certainly been a lot louder. Historically, it was about 1 in every 200 reservations was indicative of a full-blown party, and now it's almost half that, or twice as likely to happen. It's 1 in every 110 reservations. And luckily, those numbers are subsiding. I haven't looked at the last month or two, but during the summertime with COVID, it peaked at about twice as likely as it would on any normal circumstance.
Yeah, and that's called revenge travel, I've heard. Whereas like people have such a pent-up desire to get out and have a new experience. They're calling it revenge travel.
Yeah, well, it's more than that, because a lot of people, a lot of nightclubs or bars, restaurants, concerts, these things aren't happening. Or if they are, they're shutting down at 8, 9, 10 p.m. at night. And the only place you can go is into rentals. So it's logical that it's a place that you can gather. That's what we all want folks to use our properties for, is gathering places. But the use and intent of the property has changed during COVID, and really until we get out of it, it's going to likely remain escalated.
Interesting.
So there are a number of things you can do to protect yourself against parties happening. I saw a recent integration announcement from Hostfully with AutoHost. That's a great option, a great tool to screen guests on the front end of booking before they get to the property. Another thing we saw a lot early on in COVID, and it balanced out a little bit for the better sense, but people started lowering their rates really, really aggressively. And when you can get a 5-bedroom house with a pool for $100 a night, that's just screaming for the wrong crowds to be booking your place. So maintain your rates. It's not worth it for $100 a night in most of the properties out there. Also, don't accept a same day, one night local booking or any combination thereof. If they're local and it's one night, it's the same day and they're local, just avoid it. We did a quick study with Verbo. They implemented a one-night ban in Arizona, and we saw in the 2 weeks following that, the significant noise decreased by 35%. So very direct correlation between one-night stays particularly local one-night stays and severe noise issues. The next is just talking with your guests, asking them why they're coming, what they plan to do. You can use tools like Hostfully in the guidebook as a reason to talk to them and open up and be helpful to them. You want your guests to have a good stay, but if they don't have a really good reason, or it's a little fishy why they're there and they're not interested in the local restaurants or the activities, then certainly red flag. Another trick that some of our customers have told us is just let them know that you or your property manager live in the neighborhood. And if you tell them that, it is a benefit, right? Because you're there to help them, to service them, to be available for them. But it's also in the back of their head, oh crap, these people live or are able to stop by and make sure we're not throwing a party. Let's not book this house.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is have them sign a rental agreement, and this will protect you if the worst case scenario happens. And then obviously the reason why I'm here talking today, if you use NoiseAware, it is built specifically to prevent parties. We'll tell you before it even becomes an issue, and you're able to stop it when the time comes.
I love the idea of just putting it in because I feel like it's kind of a neutral way of doing a rental agreement, right? A rental agreement is saying like, Michael, if you're going to come stay with me, you need to adhere to all these rules. But it's another thing to just say like, we use a series of tools. One of them is called NoiseAware. Just so you know, it's going to monitor the decibel level in our property. This is just so that we can help keep everything safe, and that we also make sure to protect the property so that future guests can use it. Just a heads up, right? Like that's a different message than it is to say, don't party, don't have people over, don't do all these things. It's a nice, like it sort of puts the onus on the NoiseAware solution to take responsibility for that, which is really
cool. Our building, our neighborhood, our HOA has very strict quiet hours, and they are enforced. And because of this, we use NoiseAware to make sure that you don't get any fines, right? Like you can spin it in ways that make it very beneficial for the traveler.
Yeah, and you can also say things, I guess you could even be really specific and say, if you are noisy for a certain period of time, you will get a phone call or a text, and because we are monitoring that. Like you could actually say that. And it would be, again, not a threat, it's just stating what's going to happen, right? It's like, I think it's really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, here we go. This is the fun part of the presentation, right?
Yeah, so I wanted to share a few stories that we've encountered or parties that we've stopped through the years. This one actually happens to be during COVID in Miami. Nightclubs, or shall I say adult nightclubs are closed, and those adult workers and people that go to those locations didn't have anywhere to go.
Yep.
So they rented out a beautiful 5-bedroom property in Miami and had their own, called up their regulars and started to have their own nightclub. And luckily our system was able to detect that noise was rising very quickly after quiet hours had started. And when the property manager got to the property, the bouncer offered $700 for them to go away and just let them have the night of work. But they shut it down. And I mean, those are the stories that certainly write the headlines for themselves for these markets. And that's what we have to avoid as an industry.
That's been one of our most creative custom categories in guidebooks, by the way, is adult entertainment. It actually in legal cities like in Amsterdam and stuff. So watch those too.
Fair enough. The next story comes out of Gatlinburg, Tennessee, which is a family market, a lot of travelers, but it's also located within a few hours of a lot of colleges. Mm-hmm. And one of our customers has a strict no college party groups clause, but allowed it this one time because they were there for a wedding. They told the property manager they were having a wedding. So the property manager, knowing, this is a red flag booking, met him at the property. They all had tuxedos. They went the whole 9 yards. They saw that there were cameras in the backyard overlooking the grass at a similar photo like this. So they set up basically a scene like they were having a wedding, and then just proceeded to throw a party afterwards. It was quite elaborate, and I mean, kudos to college kids for always thinking outside of the box on how to get around rules. But man, yeah, that was a fun one to see.
Yeah, kudos, points for creativity.
Yeah. So the next one, let's see, what do we have next? Yeah, so South Lake Tahoe, another kind of red flag booking, a group of guys there for a quiet guys weekend, and promised to hardly even be in the house, just be out in nature all the time. First night of the booking, which is historically, if you can curb the behavior on the first night, we don't see noise events following that. So if you get them squared away the first night, there's not going to be oh, that was fun, let's do it bigger next night, or let's invite people over tonight, right? It just changed the behavior and sets the precedent right off the bat. But these guys, right as quiet hours hit, noise is spiking, and the property manager, again, knew it was a red flag booking. She shows up to the property, and the guys started cheering. They thought that their entertainment had arrived, and they eventually were evicted. So the property manager was equally as surprised that she was expected to be the entertainment. But yeah, it's definitely a funny one. When I heard that story directly from this property manager, she was both flattered and horrified at the same time.
Talk about misconceptions.
Yeah, exactly. So they were evicted. And in South Lake Tahoe, I mean, it's really strict out there. Yeah. It can be $1,000 fine for the owner of the property and for the guests for noise after 10 p.m.
Yeah.
So they take it very, very seriously out there.
They do.
The next is out of a market that is historically just family travel in Kissimmee, Florida. It's a market that we don't see a whole lot of noise events coming out of in pre-COVID times. But now, back to the dropping rates discussion, property, you can get a beautiful 4, 5, 6 bedroom house in Orlando for less than $100. It's got a pool. And so these people are, it would be party promoters for nightclubs and concerts and things like that, are now renting out not one, but 3 or 4 different houses within a community or a neighborhood. And so when they have 100 people show up, charging, like throwing out an Eventbrite, charging a cover at the door, when they get shut down, they just send out a new address and move to the next property. It's very, very organized and quite problematic for Kissimmee, who rarely has parties when Disney's open. But it's we've certainly seen the Eventbrite charge cover at the door many, many times, but it's starting to pop up in markets that we would have never expected.
Very interesting.
So aside from parties, which are definitely the worst case scenario, there are some downstream impacts of noise. We have a partnership with Proper Insurance, and we've had that for about 3 years now. Something like 1,500 homes that use both Proper and NoiseAware. And from that, we've learned that noise is the leading indicator of property misuse and of damage. So 28% of damage claims can be avoided by having NoiseAware. Our customers submit claims at a rate 28% less frequent as those that don't have NoiseAware for Proper. And what that impacts, obviously damage, properties, when a property is damaged, then you have to pull it off the rental market, fix the problem. You lose that rental revenue. You have pissed off guests that were supposed to be staying there. And then you're trying to collect it from one of the platforms or from your insurance provider. Best to just try and nip it in the bud with AutoHost and NoiseAware and as many tools as you can to make sure this doesn't happen from the get-go. Another thing that we see that our customers have told us, we did an on-site with Front Desk, who's a big property management urban company, and their cleaners tagged along, and their cleaners said, we love having NoiseAware in our units now because we know that when we're not walking into a disaster. And the turns for cleaning are very systematic, especially as you grow your portfolio and have a bigger presence. And so that is, it's a cost that you have to eat. That it's really hard to collect additional cleaning costs from the guests. And then the last thing, Patricia, in terms of regulations, historically the biggest issue regulators had with short-term rentals was collecting taxes. Most places have solved that, and they're able to collect taxes now. The next biggest problem they have is noise. Noise, parking, and trash are what drive 90% of the neighbor complaints, and they are avoidable. And Patricia, I actually just got off the phone right before this call with a reasonably sized city in Florida who is going to be voting on requiring noise monitoring in their city. And it's a conversation I've had with increasing velocity. I think COVID is changing the way some cities are viewing short-term rentals. It's a big, big benefit. It can drive taxes. It can drive tourists, but it also comes with a lot of headaches and party problems. And these things are tough to combat as property managers or owners when you have twice as many neighbors or 5 times as many neighbors showing up to City Hall as we from the industry are represented in City Hall. And so the long-term effect, the reason I'm at NoiseAware, I truly believe noise monitoring is going to be an industry standard, if it's not already in many ways, for short-term rentals. If you look at our founder, David Kraus, shout out to him, has an analogy, but back when the automobile rolled out onto the streets, essentially, there were no streets, there were no stoplights, there were no seatbelts, there were no traffic laws. But governments got better at figuring out how to reduce risk. And stopping noise is a big risk that is solvable now with NoiseAware. And I do think regulations, this pendulum keeps swinging. We've had a couple of decent years of reasonable regulations, and it feels like that pendulum's swinging back towards the onerous regulations. Long term, I think we'll all settle out okay. But it's going to be a rocky road in a lot of markets over the next couple of years, just figuring out how to best handle short-term rentals.
One of the stories about noise comes out of South Lake Tahoe, where there were, I think, something like, these might not be exact numbers, but they're ballpark right. There were something like 1,500 noise complaints in a year. And so the anti-vacation rental lobby in South Lake Tahoe said, these noise complaints are totally from vacation rentals, and this is what's causing havoc in our city, and we need them out. But what they found when they did a deeper dive into what the noise complaints actually were caused by were about 70% were from locals, and there was only 30% that were from the vacation rentals. And if you think about that, it's actually a very, very small percentage of all of the vacation rentals in South Lake Tahoe. But if you imagine if they had NoiseAware sensors, it wouldn't have just been like a retroactive look at what the noise complaints were. They could have been using real-time data. They could have said, oh, you know what? You want us to pull the data? Okay, here's the data on the the 3,000 vacation rentals that are in this city, and we can show you what the spikes were over the last 2 months. And it's almost like showing that data of having no problems is just as effective as saying we will handle them when they do come up, right? It's actually changing the perception or the misperception of vacation rentals as being problematic citizens. And I think that that's where we lose when it comes to regulations and advocacy, because we just have fewer voices. Like you said, Michael, there are fewer stories out there. And so we need to do a good job as an industry. And that's why Hostfully and NoiseAware partnered, and actually Hostfully's done other stuff too, just to try and spread the data as much as possible, because we're trying to open up and really share the truth with the communities, the local communities, and the broader community around what vacation rentals really do. And so I think this is just a huge opportunity to shed light on something that's happening in vacation rentals, and it's working fairly well. And now it can work better because we have noise monitoring tools, right? So it's just it's a great thing all around.
Yeah, and 2 points to highlight there. So our customers use us, 1, to make sure parties don't happen, 2, to eliminate neighbor noise issues, but 3, to protect themselves against false complaints.
Yes.
And this happens more frequently than I would have ever imagined. It wasn't what we thought we should add as our sales pitch, but everyone has had an issue with a false complaint.
Yeah.
We had one last week in Austin, Texas, where the guests complained that it was so loud in the unit next door to them that they couldn't sleep, but they had NoiseAware in both the units, and they were able to show the guests, nah, you're not actually telling the truth. And they stopped arguing and stopped fighting and went away. We've had homeowners, people don't like short-term rentals next door to them. And so if it's a Friday afternoon, Karen is calling the police, right? And she's saying it's time to get rid of that short-term rental next door. So people show up, she calls them, complains about noise. Well, when you can go to the city and say, look, this lady these are false complaints. Here's my data. There's not a problem with it. And it just changes the conversation. To your point, and something we're going to do a better job of in the coming years is a lot of case studies that we can share with cities, with the community, and show the impacts. We did one with Verbo in Charleston, comparing long-term and short-term rentals, and showed that there's actually not much of a difference between long-term rental noise and short-term rental noise. Mm-hmm. The only difference is what nights of the week it was noisy. So it is something that I think as an industry we have to combat, but now there are tools, and NoiseAware is certainly the leader in it, in being able to protect yourself and your property.
Mm-hmm. There's one question from Leo. Thanks for asking this, Leo. He joined a few minutes late. He wanted us to chat about the Hostfully and NoiseAware integration. Do you want to cover how that works and just Night Agent maybe once again? Because I think that's just a huge value, and I'd love to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to go back to the second or third slide?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Leo, thanks for joining. Certainly recommend working with Hostfully. They're not just a good product, but good people as well, and that's as important in many cases. But what our integration with Hostfully enables you to do is turn on Night Agent, which is our after-hours team that is reaching out to your guests, so you don't have to be up at 2 a.m. Responding to a noise alert. There's 44% of our noise alerts happen between midnight and 5 a.m. And I don't know about you, but those are hours I'm 99% of the time not awake in.
Hopefully not awake, right?
Yeah. So the Night Agent tool is built for professional managers. And with this integration with Hostfully, all you have to do on Hostfully is click a button, and NoiseAware will be able to have the first name and the phone number of the reservation. We can reach out to them for you and take that workload off of your plate.
Yeah, thank you. I think we were sort of at the end of the presentation, right? Here, let me just kind of get down here. Yeah. So let's see, what other questions do we have? Is there anybody else who has questions who's on? Oh, I have a question for you, which we haven't covered. Can you talk about like what these things are? Are they like physical devices, and how do they work? What do they cover? Yeah.
Yeah. So
let me
yeah,
slides so that we can see you.
we have two sensors, an indoor and an outdoor one. Mm-hmm. The indoor one plugs in, so you never have to charge. You don't have any batteries or anything. It's got two screw holes, so either of these will fit any standard outlet. You plug it in, screw it in. It certainly deters anybody from unplugging it, not knowing what it is. And you put this in the common space in your property. Unless your property is really, really big, you really only need one in the common space where people will tend to gather naturally. And then we also have an outdoor sensor. And this is obviously primarily for single family homes that have pools, patios, hot tubs. And similar to the indoor one, you want to put it where people are going to congregate, and also where people would most likely be putting the source of noise. Mm-hmm. So it's right outside of under the patio, and they've got their little speaker, Bluetooth speaker, whatever they carried with them. You want it basically pointing in the direction of wherever that noise is coming from. Indoor noise and outdoor noise are certainly tied together. You'll often see indoor noise fall and outdoor noise climb equally, because that speaker has moved inside to outside, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the two products that we have. This one has a butt plate that you can screw into a ceiling or a wall or a tree, whatever you need to. It just needs to be within 100 feet of the indoor sensor.
Okay. Oh, interesting. So it's wireless or Bluetooth, or how does it connect?
Correct. So this is the indoor one's Wi-Fi based, and this is
like a mesh network. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So a few other questions in here. Thanks, Patricia and Omar. Patricia came first. She asked, is there any movement in hotels to provide this type of service, and statistics on noise complaints in comparison? Do you have any of that data? That's very interesting question.
So yes, 75% of noise complaints in hotels are actually never reported. Those guests either never stay there again, or they leave a bad review. And so there are ways to get out ahead of it. If you know that noise is happening in the hotel room, it's going to be affecting the people next door, likely above, below, and possibly even across the hall. So imagine going to the front desk, being in one of those rooms next door to it, and saying, hey, we saw noise was happening next door to you. We stopped it within 5 minutes. Here's a Starbucks card. We apologize. Hope you enjoyed your stay. It's going to blow the minds of the guests. And yes, we are in a number of hotels in the US right now.
Cool. And the last question is from Omar. Will the Night Agent tool and integration be available for Hostfully digital guidebook users? I love this question. It's not available right now, but if that's something you're really excited about, Omar, please reach out to us. We would love to talk to you about how that would work. I can see few different ways that could work. And I love that you're asking that question, because I think it could be really valuable to both digital guidebook and also property management platform users. So we'll follow up with you about that. And thank you for asking. We hadn't thought about that yet. So great. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Michael. This is great. I love hearing the stories. I feel like this was like simultaneously fun and painful for property managers.
Yeah, as much as I love hearing the stories, it also is a bit cringeworthy sometimes. And I mean, this is what we're out to stop. And luckily, all of those stories were stopped before the parties got out of hand and became headlines. And it's really, if you can stop it quickly and effectively, that's what is important for really not just you and your company, but your whole market and the greater industry as a whole.
Yes. Just responding to one of these questions, and I think that's it, right? I think we're good. We have anything else you want to share?
No, I think we covered quite a bit in 39 minutes. So I appreciate you keeping me on track. I can get long-winded with some of these stories sometimes.
No, it's great. The stories are what makes it fun. Thank you so much for joining, and thanks to all of our attendees today. Really appreciate you joining us. Feel free to reach out to Michael or to me. Our contact information, I'm Margot at hostfully.com. And Michael, do you want to share your email?
It's just michael@noiseaware.io.
Yep. So feel free to reach out to us personally. We'll put you in touch with who you need to be in touch with. And you can also just contact us on our websites or in chat or support emails or whatever you need to as well there. Have a great day. Thank you for joining me, Michael. Nice talking to you.
Thanks, Margo. You too.
Bye-bye.